Hello, everyone, and hello, Martin.
Hi, Deirdre, and welcome everyone to the latest episode of the DM Show featuring a really good friend of ours who we've wanted to have on for a long time, Gini Dietrich, and we'll bring Gini on in a second. How are you doing, Deirdre?
I'm doing really well. It's been a great week so far. How about you?
Yeah, so far really good. I've just come back from, almost a week away, so kind of fun to be back and getting springtime in Toronto. Um, and one thing I did want to say to anyone who's joined us on the show, be sure to let us know where you're from. And, if you have any questions, post them in the chat, and we'll get to as many of them as we can.
Yes, and I'm sure Ginny is ready to answer all of those questions. Martin, anything we want to share that's upcoming before we get Ginny into the broadcast?
Yes, just coming up in next month's show, we'll be talking about data science and what communicators and marketers need to know, because a lot of us don't know a lot about data. And so that's something that I think will be a really interesting show. Maybe not as lively as this one, but hopefully.
Well, let's get Ginny in. But first, official introductions. Today, joining us on the show is Gini Dietrich. She is the founder and CEO of Arment Dietrich. Ginny is a friend and a longtime colleague in PR and marketing. She is the author of the book Spin Sucks, which is a favorite PR title, but she's also the founder of the Spin Sucks community for PR and marketing professionals, and she hosts the Spin Sucks podcast. Now, Ginny is also the creator of the PESO model, and that's why she's here with us today. We're going to dive deep into the PESO model, and I encourage all of you to go and check Ginny out on LinkedIn and connect with her. So here she comes. Ginny, welcome to the broadcast.
Yay!
Hi.
I'm so happy to be here.
I know, we're happy to have you. My goodness. Well,
It's like my besties in one place. It's great.
I know. If only we could do this live.
In person, right?
yes. Well, at least you two got to see each other.
We did
in
last week.
person.
Last week.
Yeah.
How lucky. Yes, I haven't been live and in person with both of you for quite some time. So we're definitely
pre-pandemic, that's for sure.
Yes, so true. So maybe we should dive in. Ginny, I just mentioned the PESO model, but for everybody out there who's not familiar, what's the genesis behind the model and why did you create it?
The PESO model is paid, earned, shared, and owned media. So you really look at all of the types of things that communicators can do to build credibility, thought leadership, authority, brand reputation, right? So what we look, the genesis for creating it is, and the two of you will understand this, is, back in the day, before social media was a thing at work, my agency was focused really on media relations, reputation management, and crisis, right? Like that's what PR was. And we had these, what I would call peaks and valleys of work. So you would have a campaign or a new product launch or something big that was newsworthy, and you'd have a peak of media placements, and then you'd have a valley where nothing was going on and you were preparing for the next. And when you run an agency, clients don't really like to pay for the valleys. They're like, oh, this is great. Let's do this more. And then they keep expecting that you're going to be in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal every week. And that's just, as you know, not how it works. So I was trying to figure out how to fill in those valleys so that clients were happy with our work all of the time. And then we had something consistent to talk about from a brand perspective to help, customers and prospects understand who the company is, who their executives are. And as that was happening, social media came onto the forefront, blogging became a thing for businesses. And we had this great opportunity to take advantage of all of the things that were happening in the PR industry to say, okay, we actually have a pretty big opportunity here to evolve the work that we do, not just do media relations, but do storytelling in really new and interesting ways and build credibility in new and interesting ways. And the PESO model was born.
That's great.
Excellent.
Before I get to the next question, there's a lot of people on here that all of us know and who said hi. So Mimi from Toronto, who teaches at Seneca College. Abby from Arizona. Abby Fink is here.
Hello, Abby.
Sherry Lynn is here. Brenda Poor from Kansas City. Danielle Cote. And Oleg, who we don't know. Welcome, Oleg. He's coming in all the way from Armenia. Anyone else who's here, please announce yourself and let us know if you have any questions. So I want to ask you, what is the best way to use the PESO model for a marketer or communicator who wants to achieve their business goals? What would you tell them?
The real answer to that is it depends, of course, right? It depends on your goals. It depends on what the organization is trying to achieve. There are lots of different outcomes from an organizational standpoint. If you're a nonprofit, it might be donations or volunteers. If you're a B2B organization, it might be qualified leads. If you're a consumer, it might be influencers. Like it depends. But that said, for the most part, I believe that one of the most important places to start is with owned media. And the reason that I believe that, and Martin, you and I have sort of solidified this thinking over the years together, is that without a foundation of content, you don't have anything to share and distribute on shared media, right? You don't have anything to prove the way that you think or your expertise or your experience to journalists and to other influencers. And you certainly don't have anything to, boost to grow your reach on paid. So without a content library, a really robust content library, I think it gets a lot more challenging. Can you do those things without it? Sure. Is it as effective? Probably not. So when we start working with a new client, one of the very first things we do is we do a content audit and look to see what kinds of content is already existing and where there might be some holes that we can start to fill in to be able to do those other things. So if I were to reformat the PESO model, I would probably do OSEP, or in some cases OESP. A lot harder to remember though, of course. So that's why it's called the PESO.
Yeah, with the owned content, did you find that companies were realizing that they had a lot to put out there and offer? It's just that they didn't realize they could carve it up and use it in different ways.
No.
They had to be educated.
Yeah, I think, unless the organization is extremely sophisticated, and I think it does come with a lot of sophistication
Sure.
today, they understand that they need content. They understand they should be on social media. They understand that they need PR, but nobody, from my experience across the board, you tend to find that most organizations are run as a sales organization, especially on the B2B side. So they're really focused on, cold calling and selling and all of that. And they don't understand how all of this other stuff can come in underneath and support that function. Right. And how it can support HR and how it can support employees, like all of those things. Right. So we have found in our experience that most organizations are not sophisticated enough. Now, we're not talking about the P&Gs and the Coca-Colas of the world. Like they get it, right? But we're talking like, $100 million or less.
Sure.
From itty bitty all the way up to that size.
Yeah. And, it's so funny because I think what the PESO model did, and maybe this wasn't even your intention at the beginning, is marketing and communications were and are moving so much closer together, even though some communicators don't want to admit it, and marketers go, what do you mean communications is separate? It's part of us. We have that. But the PESO model was a way of really bringing them all together in a strategic way, in a smart way, that puts the emphasis on storytelling rather than on just promotion or hype.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We have a couple more hellos. Deborah from Brazil, Sherry DiCarlo from Toronto, Michael Schwartz from San Diego, Rebecca Vickers. Tony Now is here, so that's really great.
Just saw him in person too.
Yeah, Maria from Sweden, Maria Petrescu, Jeff Davis is here, Matthew Sukram from North Bay. So lots of people here. Muhammad from Pakistan. So welcome everyone. And remember, if you do have any questions, please post them here. So how has the PESO model evolved over the years?
When we launched the PESO model, it was part of Spin Sucks the book in 2014. And I tell this story all the time because I think it's important for people to understand that we didn't sit down and say, let's develop a model that the industry will use and it's going to do this, this, and this. Like, that was not it at all. There was not that the strategic oversight was not there. Really what happened is I wrote about it in the book, and I should not say this out loud, but I'm in the middle of doing a second edition. And I was reading it and I was like, oh, wow. It's a lot's changed in the last 10 years. But I wrote about it in the book, and I remember my publisher coming back to me and saying, this is really interesting. Do you have a name for it? And I was like, no. And she's like, let's name it. And then she said, let's create a graphic. And so we created this graphic, and really for the purpose of the book and because of the way it's written, we looked at it and we said, okay, here are the 4 media types, and here's where they intersect. And here are the tools that you can use for each. So in the first iteration, you had Google+, you had Vine, you had tools that don't exist anymore, right? So when we looked at evolving it and refreshing it in 2020, we looked at that and said, well, it was kind of stupid of us to do tools. Let's look at it from a tactical perspective and say, okay, under earned media, you would include these things. Under shared, you'd do these things, right? Which was all fine and dandy, but it was still tactical. And one of the challenges I think PR industry has overall is that it's really hard to measure the work that we do. And part of that is because some of the work that we do is not measurable, like brand reputation, right? But part of it is because we tend to focus on tactics and we focus on measuring outputs instead of outcomes. So as we've been doing this work with our clients and internally as well, I wanted to create the model with this new refresh to say, okay, this is how we're going to focus the model on outcomes. So if you do earned media, the outcome is that you're building credibility, gaining credibility. If you're doing paid media, you're growing your reach. So we really focused on the outcomes. And then we have the second version that has the tactical list because everybody loves that.
So Ginny, with all the changes that have come, we're in this new realm. You know what I'm going to throw out next? Martin's smiling. What about AI?
I freaking love AI. I think it's the best thing. Yeah. So one of the things we looked at is where it fits in. And I do believe it fits in. You know, I just now finished, and Martin, I'm dying to know if you read it, just finished Kara Swisher's new book, Burn Book. And it's a great book. Just, it's an easy read because it's super gossipy, and she like talks about, she holds no punch. Like, she's just like, and so is an asshole, and like it's great. Yeah. It's great from that perspective. So it's an easy read. But I think there are 2 reasons that communicators should read it. And one is because it's a massive inside view at how a reporter at that level works with executives and their PR teams. So you can better understand, you know, in the Spin Sucks community, there was a conversation probably about a week ago about reporters wanting direct access to their executives, and how that everybody's like, oh, we can't do that. And I'm like, why? Yes, give them direct access. There's no reason that we have to gatekeep that. No, if they can't be trusted, that's a different thing, right? But that's a different issue, right? But it's so it's a great look at how someone like that, she was having conversations with like Elon Musk at 3:00 in the morning over text message. Yeah. You're not going to get the information that you need from a source if you have to wait for the PR person to get up in the next morning and get all that done, right? So from that perspective, it's great. The other perspective, I think, is that she does a nice timeline, historical timeline of the internet coming about, and how much hand wringing there was, and everybody was worried about the internet, and oh my gosh, the internet's going to change things, and holy cow, we can't. And then when the dot-com bubble burst, everybody cheered because the internet, see, they said the internet's just a fad, it's not really a thing. And now we can't do our jobs without the internet. Right? I think AI is the same thing. There's all this hand wringing right now. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to take our jobs and it's not ethical. And what happens if we use it to create some content? And then okay, it's going to change the way that we do our jobs. It's already making us more efficient. Like, use it, play with it, try it out. Don't be scared of it.
I mean, I remember this with email. Do you
Yeah.
remember how executives were about email? We're only going to use it on the top tier of the company and nobody else can have it.
Yep.
Do you know?
Social media, the same thing.
Yes, you're right.
Oh,
you're
my
right.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Well, here we are again.
Here we are again.
In the early 2000s. So I had my own publicity consultancy, and I got a job at an agency, and I had my own email. I had it since probably the mid 90s, 96 maybe, which is still not that early. I get to this agency, 25 people, and there was one email.
One.
Yeah, one email. And what the CFO did is she would walk around twice a day with a basket. She printed them all and then handed them out to you like mail. And then you had to scribble your response, and she typed them.
Can you imagine?
No,
I know this. No, it was really crazy. Your question about the burn book? Yes. After
Did you finish it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After our breakfast, I bought it at the airport. Read most of it on the plane. It is incredible. And for
it's incredible.
Kevin Flother, hi Kevin, welcome. Said an excellent book. It really is, and it should be required reading for anyone in marketing and communications, because it gives you that insight into the history of how we've come to where we are, the ups and downs, and there are a lot of ups and downs. It really gives you a great understanding of the men, and it's mostly men in Silicon Valley who are kind of jerky, megalomaniacal personalities who are out for power and money. But what they say is, oh no, you've taken advantage of us. No. So it gives you a really great understanding of that. And the nicknames she gives to all the tech CEOs.
She has nicknames for all of them.
Yeah, that's incredible. Definitely worth reading. I can't wait to read her. Maybe she says she owes her publisher one more book. I bet that will be on generative AI.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
It's called Burn Book by Kara Swisher.
So good.
Here. There you go. In the comments. Definitely worth reading. Anyway, sorry. Where were we?
So going back.
Oh yeah, generative AI. So how does generative AI fit into the PESO model?
So a couple of things. So number one, we have the PESO model certification that we launched 4 years ago with Syracuse University, their SI Newhouse School for Communications. And that has had to evolve over the last 4 years as well. And so when we updated the content at the beginning of this year, we included AI into it. And there are some things that I think have made us more efficient. So part of the PESO model process, or the framework that we teach, is developing a content map that allows you to think strategically about your content so that it can appeal both to humans and to spiders and show up in search results. So 4 years ago when we launched this, it was very much we actually forced people to actually think about it. We forced them to go to Google and start searching their terms and searching the way that a customer or a prospect would search, so that they better understand how that journey works and how somebody might come to find your content and then go through the process once they hit your website. Well, today you don't have to do all that anymore, right? You can go into ChatGPT and say, who are the 10 reporters that have written about this topic in the last 30 days? And it goes, boom, right? And it gives it to you, and it gives you links, and it tells you, what the story was about. Like, it gives you everything. And before, it gives that to you in 10 seconds. Before, 4 years ago, even 18 months ago, it would take you 2 or 3 hours. So it's making you more efficient from that perspective. One of the examples I love to tell is that we have a client who does a 1-hour webinar every week. And 2 years ago, we would have it transcribed, the webinar transcribed. Somebody from my team would sit in the webinar, we'd have it transcribed. And then it would take us probably about 2 weeks to create the content around each of those. So you're easily 2 weeks out, and he's doing one every week, right? A lot of content. Now we take the transcription, we throw it into ChatGPT, and we say, we need an outline for 4 different articles on with using this transcript, and it gives us the outline. And then we say, like, you can keep prompting it to get enough that you need for an article. You can get 4 articles out of ChatGPT in 10 minutes. Are they
Amazing.
the end point? No, but it's a great starting point. And now we can deliver materials to him on one webinar. He does them on Wednesdays. We can have everything to him on Friday instead of 2 weeks from now. He's happy. We're happy. It's everybody's happier. So, when we think about it from a PESO model perspective, we're bringing it into all pieces so that you can become more efficient and really focus on the things that we're best at, right? We're best at storytelling. We're best at communicating with our stakeholders. Those are the things that we should be focused on. Let AI do all the sort of busy work.
Right. And we get to, when we share stories, be authentic, show our personality.
That's right.
Build relationships, all the things that AI cannot do.
Yet.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not for a while, but that's coming. One of the things, a really good point about using it for idea generation.
Yeah.
I think what some people, when they approach AI, they think of it as, okay, this is the be all and end all. My job, I may not like it, or my work's good enough, AI is good enough, so done, prompt, end. And that's really not. AI is kind of the beginning. So you have to make sure you fact check. You have to make sure, just to your point, Ginny and Deirdre, that this is the beginning of stuff. Because right now, AI is pretty good, I think, at images, but it's a kind of mediocre writer if you ask it to write something long. And it uses a lot of adjectives that you can just...
You're right.
Yeah.
That you could... So
in today's digital age, it likes that one.
Yes, or in a world where, or leverage. If I see the word leverage one more time, I'm gonna.
Sorry, Martin. Go ahead.
No, so we have to kind of get beyond using it for the most obvious things and think about, okay, how can we use AI in a way that isn't just to generate content? What else can it help us with? And there's lots of other things that it can do. Okay, Deirdre, sorry, over to you.
Oh, no, that's okay. I find you have to be very careful. AI will share, you'll ask for something and it shares some type of study or that it found a piece of information. And then you ask more about it. Oh, I can't access that.
Right. You're like, oh,
go to the website. It doesn't really give you a link to that study or the specifics that it originally brings up. So just be careful.
Yeah, you have to be careful for
sure.
I think it's, I call it an intern. Like, we have an intern that's doing this for us. You would never publish something that an intern writes first draft. You just wouldn't, because they don't have the experience. They don't have the client understanding. They don't have the business understanding. Does it give you a good first draft to start from? Sure.
Yeah, good foundation.
Yeah.
So true. What about with photos? What are you finding, Ginny, with taking a photo and recreating it, or sharing what you want the photo to be and what you get? Because I got a hand with
big hands, like great.
Yeah, all disjointed. So I don't know.
It's like when poor Kate Middleton released that photo and everybody's all up in arms about it. I remember before the whole thing happened, I looked at it and thought, did AI create this? Because there were just some little tiny inconsistencies.
Yeah. The knee was off, a hand.
Yeah, and like there was a hand. Yeah.
You saw it too.
So I don't think it's there yet. I've actually used a couple of the headshot ones just to see, and some of them, are okay. Do they pass for an actual headshot? Probably not, but it's kind of fun to see. Like,
It is fun.
Yeah. We have a bunch of comments to go through, so I just want to quickly summarize them. So Deborah said at the Web Summit in Rio, they talked a lot about AI and how it's there to support jobs. Lexi from Southern California is a huge fan of yours, Ginny, and really loves your podcasts. So thank you for that. Danielle Cote, GPT 3.5 won't give you an overview of articles on a particular topic that I can see. Is that correct? I think it does give you an overview, Danielle, but the thing is, it makes stuff up. So when you get that overview, you've got to check it or ask it to check it. You may want to double check with a site perplexity.ai, which is an AI enabled search engine. It's really good, and it gives you links to things. I'll type Perplexity in the comments.
Copilot will do that too.
Yeah, Copilot, right. Maria says for Ginny, how do you navigate the fact that AI generated content, especially ChatGPT, tends to sound artificial? And she goes on to say it's surprising that humans are pretty good at identifying that type of content.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what we were just talking about. It likes the word leverage. I threw something in there the other day, and it literally came back with "in today's digital age." In today's digital age, I'm like, oh my gosh! So I think you're right, but that's why it's a starting point. It's not the end point. Like it gives you. There are lots of people who will stare at a blank screen and not have any idea where to start. So it gives them a great starting point. And sometimes it's just easier to start with written words on a page, and then you can go in and you can go, okay, this doesn't make any sense, or I hate this intro, or you can massage it and move things around, but it gives you a place to start versus just staring at the blank screen.
Yeah, just remember to edit it, because it does come out with some things that aren't great. It's funny though. I say this if I'm doing a talk or a lecture on AI, that I still have a big enough ego to believe I'm a better writer than an intelligence that has been trained on, Wikipedia and so many books and research.
Are.
I don't know. It's getting
maybe
close.
Not 5 years from now, but right now I think we're all still
right now. Okay, right now we're okay with that, and maybe AI is going to push us beyond the good enough, because it does good enough, so we have to do better.
Yeah.
I like what Kim says. Martin, did you see this comment?
Yes.
Kim Coleman?
Yes, you must you must
Yep.
personalize your content with your own experience, which is the new EEAT for SEO, which is experience, expertise, authority, and trust.
Yep. And Ginny, didn't you just write about that recently? You have a newsletter or something that people should check out.
Yeah. So I've been spending a lot of time on this too, because I want to understand the difference between Google search and AI search. And I think they're in a big fight right now to see who's going to, and Google's not going to go down without a fight. Right.
Right.
So what I'm seeing, and I'm sure now that you start to pay attention, you'll see this too, is that when you search something on Google, you're starting to get snippets of information. And you always had the featured snippet right over to the right-hand side, but now in the main thread, you'll see snippets with or without the link. And Google is doing that because that's how ChatGPT is giving you information, right? You say, what is the PESO model in ChatGPT? And it gives you a paragraph of what it is, what it came to be, how it came to be about. And Google is starting to do the same thing. So the only way that you can show up in both places in that way is to have relevant content. That's number one. And then number two is, are you adding your experience and proving your expertise through that content? And if you can do those three things, then you'll start to build the authority and the trust that you need to be able to get it up in search rankings in both AI and in Google.
That's good. We're almost at the end. This is gone by.
Louise.
Yeah, we're almost at the end. So you know what? for the last question, and there's a couple things we haven't been able to get to in the chat. Sorry about that. And that is, you've recently launched a new PESO certificate guide, Ginny, for people who want to really up their skills and knowledge of how to apply the PESO model, and then teach other people how to use it in a strategic way. Do you want to just talk about that?
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, so we just launched the PESO Model Certified Guide, and that it is exactly what you just described. It's somebody who, right now, it's focused on solopreneurs and agency owners. We'll get to in-house marketers probably in the next 90 to 120 days. But right now, we're focused on solopreneurs and agency owners to teach them the framework of the PESO model, help them understand how to implement it internally for their own business, and then how to sell it to clients. So if we're working with existing clients and we're doing earned media, but we want to add on the other 3 media types, how do we do that? And what does that look like? And what kinds of budgets do we have to anticipate? And how, if we're going to ask for more budget from existing clients to implement some of this, how do we have those conversations? How do we price appropriately? So it's a little bit of business growth focused in there too, but mostly it's how do we take the PESO model, understand it so well that we can teach it and we can implement it both for ourselves and for our clients.
Excellent. And needed. So thank you for that, Ginny.
Really,
Very
a
excited.
mini PESO MBA.
Yeah.
Or a PESO mini MBA, something like that. I think we have to go. I would just, for everyone who is watching or who watches on the recording, if you don't subscribe to SpinSuck's blog, do it now, and follow Ginny on LinkedIn, on X, wherever, because you will be so glad you did.
Yes. So Thank true. You. Well, is it a wrap?
It's a
that was
wrap.
fast.
I know.
Jeez.
Right. We will definitely have you back.
Yes.
I would love to be back.
Thank you, Ginny. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Martin. And thanks to everybody for joining today.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.